G'day friends, welcome to day 23 of Inktober 2000, stop it, Oliver, 2017, Oliver's at my feet and he's being a nightmare. I've had to put Bianca in the room and now he's trying to get in the room. It's just been a mess. So if you hear the door rattling, it's just Oliver trying to get in there. But yeah, today's piece is called Mum Nature. She's actually just a direct rip of that video that I did where I reviewed the render no show through render no show through sketchbook. I don't know what it's called. It's the review of the sketchbook. It's called the render no show through alcohol marker. It's supposed to be bleed proof for all alcohol markers, and it was actually really good for that. Like, it did not bleed through at all. Everything I put on the paper, it stayed on that side of the paper. I've since learned that apparently there's like I think someone said it was like a black, kind of like a plasticky material, like inner core, which stops it from transferring onto the other side. But I just think it's amazing, especially for people that do a lot of Copic marker work. I don't need to explain it in this video because I've already done an impressions on it, but yeah, it's actually a really amazing thing. Anyway, when I was doing the sketching in that book, I came up with this little lady, and I just really liked it. She had leaves on her head, and I thought, I want to do this again, but I want to do it in a much more refined way, and I want to do it on a cleaner piece of paper without swatches everywhere. So I decided to do that today. And today I really wanted to play with some nice sketching with this pen, and I wanted to play with a lot of grey wash, like layers. I wanted to layer this up and get a lot of texture in there, a lot of shadows, and just I don't know, get a really nice feel for using a lot of different grey tones, because I have been kind of limiting myself to just a few grey tones, and I wanted to see what happens when I tried to build a whole picture just with like greys. So that's what I'm doing today, and you'll just see that I'm starting with really light washes, and then I'm just kind of going over it and over and over it. I'll explain a bit about that later. Anyway, the pen. Thank you to everyone that's been jumping on board and giving people answers to the questions that I've not gotten around to answering. The pen that I use comes up a lot, and this one in particular is a platinum carbon ink fountain pen. I'm going to link it below, the exact one I use, because I know the nib sizes can vary, but the carbon ink is like a bulletproof, waterproof ink. Like, it's just incredible. It doesn't move, so it's great for sketching. If you do a lot of urban sketching with watercolor, this is your pen. If you just want to sketch in pen but kind of have the the really fine line of, say, a mechanical pencil, this is the pen for it. I honestly haven't found anything that's comparable, so I wanted to just link that below for you. Again, thank you to everyone that jumps on and answers a few of those questions that people ask. I do endeavor to get around to answering a lot of questions, but especially lately with the daily videos and Halloween content and getting everything ready for Christmas, like, it's been crazy busy around here, and I haven't been as good as I have been about answering comments in an efficient manner. So I still do try to answer some of them, but thank you to everyone that does jump on and give your answers. I really do appreciate that. So, yeah, the pen, I feel like it takes a standard sized cartridge. I only ever refill it with the carbon ink refills, but I feel like it's a standard cartridge size, to refill. So I don't know, I haven't really seen anyone change the ink in it and maybe use like a colored ink. I don't know if there are a lot of waterproof colored inks out there, but I mean, it might look great with like a sepia tone, especially if you do a lot of skin. I like sepia tones for skins because it looks like a softer border if you're doing lighter skins, but it kind of looks like an invisible border if you're doing dark, deeper skin tones. So sepia is something that I like to sketch skin tones with. Because this is like a wide range of variety that you can do your skin tones with if you do it with a sepia. Sepia? I don't know. But yeah, so I'm just going in with the layers here, and I don't know, building them up, I never use a reference for shadows. I shouldn't say never, I rarely use a reference for shadows and highlights because I like to work more intuitively, unless I'm doing a commission piece or something that's very specific. If I'm doing a portrait that has to kind of look like what I'm doing, I will use a reference. But for all of this stuff that's just playtime, I have an idea of where the shadows lie, but I don't rely on it too much. Like, if I've put a highlight where a highlight wouldn't naturally fall, it doesn't really matter to me. Generally, I highlight the same areas in every one of my drawings, and generally I put the shadows in the same area in every one of my drawings. And I think that if you go through, and a lot of the details I put in are the same, like that choker with the vine, that's not the first time I've done that. That leaf crown, definitely not the first time I've done that. But I think working in a lot of repetition, especially if you're trying to establish what your new style is, or you're trying to change your style, or you're still trying to develop one, I think working with a lot of repetition helps that. And even if you find that you don't like what you've been doing for the past month or two, change that up, and then whatever you change it to, keep repeating that. And I think it also helps you to grow and learn better than, say, if you're trying to tackle learning 12 different things at once. Like if you if your style, if you're kind of working on your style and you're thinking, oh, like what would my drawings look like with these super long elegant giraffe necks, like let me just have a go at that. Just try that. Don't suddenly say like, well, I'm just going to try this long giraffe neck, and then I want to try these really small shoulders, and then I also want to try these really big eyes, and I want to try these really huge lips and a really, really tiny nose. Like, don't change everything all at once, because I think then you're kind of you're distracting yourself from from the element that you really think you might want to start adapting and changing. Does that make sense? Like, just kind of focus on small parts. It's kind of working on the details, I find, helps the overall image, like the overall aesthetic of what you're doing. It's all built up in layers, and if you're trying to change 12 layers at once of your style, it just gets a little confusing, and I don't think it sticks as well as if you're just changing one thing at a time. So that's my little helpful tip for today. If you're looking to change things up, if you're still looking to experiment with different things, literally just pick one element that you're maybe not so happy with and change it. And I also encourage you to go a little further than your first thought. Sometimes our first thoughts aren't our best thoughts. So if you're actually really struggling with hands and you want to learn how to do hands, and that's something that you really want to do, start doing your images with big hands. Make them obvious. Make them a focal point. And I think it's really going to push you to get it right, and to get it right quicker, because you're gonna notice that if they're really big on the page, if everyone's looking at them, there's a bit more pressure to work harder at it. So I know I'm not saying you have to stay with big hands forever, but until you've figured out what you wanted to do, really, really focus on that. I personally don't love drawing hands, and I've never really had the desire to learn how to draw hands. I can definitely do it if I take the time, but I just can't be bothered. I even don't really love the look of like a really perfect hand. I kind of like just the spindly little fingers and more of the suggestion of a hand, but that's something that I worked out over time. I kept on working on the hands. I kept on thinking like, what do I want to change about them? Do I want all the fingers? Do I want them to look like this? And when I finally found something that worked for me, which was just kind of the wrist, the thumb, and a few fingers just kind of spindling off, that's what I loved, and that's what I started sticking with, and that's what you'll see kind of repeated in my work over and over again. But I might change. I might grow out of that phase. I might want to try something else, and then for a couple months you might see me trying to do something different. I think the eyes in my drawing have changed significantly over time. I think the lips, I feel like, have kind of always been the same. The necks have always kind of been a little bit long and a little bit bizarre, but I like that. Hairstyles for me change constantly. I'm always trying something different with hairstyles, and how much detail I want to add, or the shapes of hairstyles. So just vary it up a little bit, but I encourage you to think about what would be obvious for you to do, and then try and take it a couple of steps further, because I think that's when you're going to start to unlock parts of your creativity that maybe you're too afraid to express, or maybe you just don't know you have yet. But yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. I hope you enjoyed it, and tomorrow I'll be back for day 24. Bye!